When you think about the most successful and disruptive products in recent years, they're usually ones that leverage the product itself to acquire and retain new users, rather than relying solely on sales and marketing. Today, we call this growth strategy product-led growth, and there isn't really a better success story out there than Sketch versus Figma. Let's take a quick look at how specifically Figma utilized real-time collaboration features to attract and retain users before I introduce you to a product leader that's going to show you how you can do the same in your applications. Okay, so you've got Figma and you've got Sketch. These two design tools, they can pretty much accomplish the same thing. Yet, in recent years, Figma, despite being younger than Sketch, has far surpassed it in terms of usage and, valuation as well.
$20 billion?
That figure doubles the valuation that this startup landed last June.
Why? What is the difference between these tools? Well, with something like Sketch, you have to save a local file for every iteration, often making version control a mess and team collaboration a challenge as you share files back and forth, collaborate and communicate using separate tools, and then eventually come back to Sketch and just hope nothing has gone out of sync or out of date in between. With Figma, you share a link, and then everybody is looking at the latest version of that document. This is possible because of multiplayer editing and other real-time collaborative features like live cursors and comments, which create crucial behavioral cues that enable context and communication to be shared between teammates. Figma has maybe some other features Sketch doesn't, but fundamentally what it did is eliminate the shortcomings of sharing files back and forth, allowing teams to collaborate and communicate in the same place. Now, apart from improving the user experience, this also created a PLG flywheel where designers would invite their teammates, developers, and stakeholders to Figma to see their designs and leave feedback. Once the team arrived, they would often stick around because they could do everything in the same place. Sometime later, Sketch did eventually cross the chasm from single player to multiplayer, but by then it was too late. Figma was already on the rise. Today, users kind of expect to collaborate and communicate in the same app. Yet, many applications fail to capitalize on this opportunity due to how hard the technical challenges are to implement something like real-time collaboration successfully in production and sometimes at scale as well. To tell us more about the challenges with real-time collaboration and how you can overcome them in your own applications, I'm joined by Shrishtika Neelakantam, who is product manager for multiplayer collaboration at Ably. She's the author of a post entitled The Rise of Real-Time Collaboration and has been working with her team on a new product by Ably called Spaces that works on top of the established Ably real-time infrastructure to make it quick for developers and PMs to introduce shared spaces that enable real-time communication and collaboration in any application.
Hey Alex, thanks for the introduction. I'm actually really glad you brought up Figma in your intro because back in 2017 when they initially introduced real-time collaboration, it wasn't obvious at all that it would go on to become so successful. If anything, designers kind of hated the idea.
Yes, that's right. I kind of remember these concerns around having hovering art directors and doing design by committee.
Exactly. But now designers grew to love it, and not just them, like users across the board have come to recognize the benefits of real-time collaboration, especially today more than ever before because of the new post-pandemic remote working situation we're all in right now.
And the companies that are doing it very well are being rewarded by their users and almost disrupting their own categories.
Yeah, totally. You're talking about these applications that have recognized the benefits and have put real-time collaboration at the core. For example, Monday.com or Attio for CRNs, or you can think of Notion, obviously, for wiki or text editors and note-taking. There's Airtable for spreadsheets, or even more recently, there's Linear for task management. People love the user experience that comes with it. And I think, Alex, you really, hit it on the nail with your intro. I think at the end of the day, it does come down to PLG. Real-time collaboration has helped them keep the users, keep their customers on their platform for longer, right? Like if I can collaborate on the thing that I'm working on right there within the application, it's a win-win for everyone. I don't have to jump around with different applications, different products, and figure out on the side how to actually talk to the people I'm collaborating with and do those things. Instead, I can do it directly within the app. And it's obviously a win for the company as well, because they get to keep their customers for longer on their platform.
When Figma did this originally, it really wasn't obvious that it would be successful. But fast forward 5-7 years, something like that, users have actually come to expect to collaborate and create in the same place. And they want a degree of real-time connectivity. And yet, I don't think every company is like capitalizing on the opportunity.
Building this, something like that from scratch is super hard. And it's kind of a distraction from being able to focus on the functional objectives of the business in the first place. First, you need dedicated in-house expertise. Developers need to know how to work with protocols like WebSockets to be able to implement these kind of communication between different nodes. Then you need to figure out how to scale this messaging service for a global audience. And there are so many unique challenges involved in just that part, because WebSockets is so different from the general REST-based request that you send around, and scaling that part. So it's probably worth a whole other video altogether to delve into that. And then finally, even if you manage all of this, it's a constant challenge to continuously maintain this hosted architecture and host it yourself and make sure the service is reliable and performant for all the users that are using it.
It's funny you should mention scaling WebSockets. I'm quite familiar with those challenges. I agree, it's very hard. Just a few weeks ago, actually, I made a whole video about that on the Ably YouTube channel. Maybe we can link it in the corner. All right, so Ably Spaces. Ably is a real-time infrastructure API that's been around since 2016, whereas Spaces is a new product by Ably. Can you talk to us a little bit about how they relate to each other, first of all?
Ably right now provides a hosted real-time messaging infrastructure as a service with SDKs in many different platforms and programming languages, and essentially developers are able to leverage a pub/sub messaging pattern to build all kinds of real-time applications. But what we've noticed is that while these flexible channels are incredibly useful for developers who know exactly how to architect the messaging part in their product, it's sometimes a bit too much flexibility for others who are just looking to implement a few collaborative features quickly and move on to other priorities in the business. And that's exactly what Spaces does. It's a new product built on top of our existing Ably SDKs to provide a set of purpose-built APIs that are focused on specific features, and they're optimized for the kinds of payload structures or frequency of updates that you might expect for those specific features. Right now, we have 4 features that it enables. There's avatar stacks, so you can see people that are currently online in your application collaborating with you right there. There's member location, so you can see where within the application people are sort of clicking around, which page, which component they're currently on. There's live cursors, so you can see what they're looking at, what you might sort of predict what they might be doing next before they've actually done it. And there's finally component locking, which is my favorite, which allows you to lock just bits of UI components to be able to work on that separately without having confusion between other people trying to edit the same thing at the same time.
One thing as well you said I wanted to point out, if I understood you well, is that because Spaces is built on top of Ably, which is a very general and versatile pub/sub real-time solution, you do get the option to drop down if you need to. So in terms of Spaces, I get it. Like, I hear those 4 features, they sound very compelling. How about a little demo to see what it can do and what the code looks like and all that good stuff?
Great, of course. I thought you'd never ask. We actually made a really cool demo of a slide deck editor, and let me share that with you now. I'll share a link and you can come join me in the virtual space.
All right.
So here's the link.
Let me see. Okay. I think I'm here.
Right. So I can see you're here because I saw your avatar stack pop up right there. Looks like you're Rima. Hey, Rima, nice to meet you.
And that would make you a debtor. A debtor. That's such a nice name. Good to meet you as well.
Yeah, I love these unique, randomly generated names. Anyway, so I've got the code for this application in the repo on the side. I'll get to it in a bit, but I want to demonstrate essentially the 4 features that I've been talking about that are powered by the Spaces SDK right now. One of which you already saw, it's an avatar stack. We saw you come on board as soon as you join. If I open it up again, there's a third person now. And if I leave, that person has disappeared, but I can still see them as, last seen whatever seconds ago. So that's pretty handy. There's also live cursors. I see you hovering around on the slide. It's good because in a real sort of collaborative situation, I can see what you're pointing at or what you're looking at, so I can anticipate sort of what you might be working on. Then there's member location, so I can switch around between the slides. You can see my avatar changing on your end. I can also click on different sort of components here, and you can see sort of like a border with my name there, and the same for you. That's member location, tells you which UI component someone has selected, so they might be working on it. And then finally, coming to my favorite feature of all, it's component locking. So I've selected this this component, right, which says something about effective design. Try to stop me in terms of what I'm writing if you can.
All right, let me give it a go. But yeah, I can't because it's locked, right? Like it won't let me type anything. I see a little no-go type of cursor. And what are you writing, Shrishtika? Semicolons are a waste of characters in JavaScript. Like
I wrote that on purpose because I know you can't edit because the component is locked by me, and so you can't really say anything. At least until I've selected elsewhere and hence release the lock, and now you can pick up the rock, and I know what you're going to say. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. So essentially, like the component locking feature, as you can see, it avoids the doubt, confusion of people trying to collaborate to the down to the word or the character of the content that they're working on. It's so good to avoid this sort of whole confusion. You know what I'm working on. I want to be left alone just on that component. I'm not saying you can't be on the entire sort of slide deck or work on your own components, but just that one component. You can see I'm working on it. Once I've clicked elsewhere, you can pick it up, do your changes, and that's it. I think it's generally really good in terms of avoiding that confusion on the whole.
I think when we talk about real-time collaboration, a lot of the time it's in the context of like a Google Docs or a Figma or something like that. But one place I see this being especially impactful is if you're building, for example, a ticketing system with support agents. Rather than them potentially like duplicating effort, working on the same tickets at the same time, you could probably see, first of all, that there's somebody already there. That's the behavioral cue. And if you do get as far as responding, well, if they're already typing, you can't then go in and duplicate the effort.
Yeah, 100%. And you got the right word there, behavioral cues, right? Because when you're actually collaborating, there's so much that happens in these unsaid behavioral cues, and you know exactly what someone else might be doing. And that just improves the productivity overall, because you don't have to separately go to a different application, write a message saying, you know what, I'm going to work on this, and then wait for their response or jump on a call. None of that. Like, you know what's happening. You sort of like understand what's going on, and you can just get on with your work together.
What do you say we look at the code behind these 4 features? I'm curious what it takes to bring them to life.
Jumping right in, now the full code for the demo is actually available. It's all open source. It's part of the SDK repository, but I'm not going to go into that because it's going to have a lot of React and UI stuff. That's not really part of the SDK. So there's another folder called examples that we can take a look at. So let's just take a look at the locations example, right? As I was saying, basically, Spaces depends on Ably's core SDK. So you begin by importing the 2 SDKs and instantiating the 2 SDKs. Now, anything at Ably, like communication with Ably, starts with authentication, where you need an auth URL or an API key. You can just get it from the dashboard and stick it right here. And once you have an instance for Space, you can essentially create a new space using a unique identifier for that space. Let's say for our slide deck, we call it slide deck 224. And that's it. You enter the space using space.enter, send your profile information, your name and profile picture, maybe your color, stuff like that. And essentially, you just subscribe to locations when using the location API, and you will get an update triggered in this method whenever any other members that are part of the same space have updated the location. So location update could mean they've changed the slide, they've changed the component they're active on, or they've left the space, or a new person has joined the space with a specific location. And you would get the current location, the previous location, and according to that, you can just update your UI to reflect those changes by drawing a border around, showing the small avatars moving, or whatever you like in your UI. Your own location can be set using space.locations.set, and you just specify your own idea of a location in terms of what it means in your app. And that's pretty much it. as you can see, it's just these many lines of code for locations, and it's the same for the rest of the features that you can maybe explore later. But just sprinkling these many lines in your maybe existing app or other kind of app already gives you this collaborative magic in your application for your users in no time at all.
It looks like you sort of bring your own app and your own user interface, but then you can rely on this quite high level, easy to learn API to add those 4 features. And of course, with the ability to drop down to Ably if you want to have more flexibility.
Exactly. And it's not just these 4 features, right? Like you can imagine all the features that I showed are actually about the state of the participants that are collaborating synchronously with each other. There's also the state of the application itself, the text we were entering in the slide deck app, which really in reality needs to go to the backend, your own database or your own server for validation and whatnot. You can maybe call that application state and still deal with the real-time changes in that using channels because they're so flexible and connect to everything in the system design. And spaces can be sort of left to deal with all the participant state with dedicated APIs. So the reason I'm bringing this up is it's not just 4. We could have many more APIs related to just the participant state in the future soon with Spaces.
And it looks like in the GitHub repo, which is plentiful, by the way, with examples and documentation, the slide deck demo is, I think, coded with React. Is Spaces specific to React, or can you use it with any front-end technology?
It's definitely not just restricted to React. You can use it with any front-end technology. It's written right now based on the Ably JavaScript SDK, but in the future, we might expand it to other SDKs and platforms as well. So this should be automatically, natively be available on mobile languages and whatnot.
Amazing.
But for the web now, it's available in all kinds of JavaScript.
I think the only question I have for you in closing is about how to get started with this technology if somebody is watching and they want to play with it or see how it could work within their own application.
I can share some resources that you can maybe show to people. There's obviously a nice page on the website that tells you everything about Spaces, as well as links to documentation, examples, the repo that I showed if you just want to interrogate it yourself, because it's all open source. We've been building this in public over the last few months. It's been a really exciting journey for all of us. And yeah, just feel free to check it out, try it. It's also available for free right now while it's in beta. So make use of that opportunity, try it out as much as possible in whatever things you might find useful. And there's also lots of in-depth documentation on the website that you can see to sort of start implementing it in your own apps. If you have any feedback, or the people watching this video have any feedback, I'd love to receive that and continuously improve the product as we go and add more and more features, like I was saying.
Jyotika, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alex. This has been fun.